Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to install a Raspberry Pi onto our resin printer. There aren't many options out there, so I will try to guide you the best way I can and the way that worked for me. Here's the hardware list you need. A number 2 X key to open the printer, a couple of screwdrivers to take out some of the screws of the board and some of the connectors. You'll need a DC-DC buck converter, which will convert 12 volts from the power supply of the printer to 5 volts for the Raspberry Pi. You will also need a Raspberry Pi. You'll need some headers to solder into the main board of the printer to make the connection to the Pi, some jumper cables, and a modified USB cable in order to allow the printer to see the Raspberry Pi. So let's begin. For starters, you'll need the hex key and your resin printer. I went ahead and already took the screws out, but all you need is use the hex key to take out all of the screws around the printer. Please make sure that your printer is turned off. Do not have the power cord connect to it. After opening the printer, you will put it on its side and you will open the case like so. This is the back part. And turning the printer around, you'll have the front part. In this case, I have the LCD on the front part of the printer. Be very careful when pulling this front piece out, because you will have the flat cable for the screen. The way to disconnect it is simply use your flathead screwdriver and push gently the black plastic like so. This will release the flat cable and take the flat cable out. Now you can store safely your screen. This will reveal the insides of your printer. Now, here's what we'll need. You have the USB cable, which takes USB all the way to the front. Disconnect it. You have a couple of power connectors over here, so use your screwdriver and gently pull them out one by one. Please take note of the positions so you don't mix them up when you go and connect them again. Take them out of the way. Like so. There are 2 Phillips screws, one over here and one over here. In this case, in this Chituboard. Just take the screws out. And gently hold the board. Be very careful with the flat cable coming from the screen itself. This is a very fiddly connection, so you need to be very careful when dealing with this one, because if it breaks, the whole system is bricked. So take the tape out and with your fingers just simply lift it up gently, and there you go. Now it's disconnected. Now pull it to a side take the Z-axis motor connector out and take the end switch out, and you will have your board. As per the connections online, you will find a set of pins like so, where you'll have to solder your header connectors. In this case, I already did. I soldered them over there, but the best way to do it is cut them the amount you need. You will only need 3. I used 4, but you only need 3, and they will look like so. Once this is done, put the board back in and attach all the cables. Oh, before you do that, you're better off connecting already your jumper cables to your header pins using the first 3, which is ground, TX and RX, like so. Put them to the side and just install your board. The correct order: first of all, end stop, plug it in. After that, Z-axis motor, plug it in. Take this lead the best way you can, and ever so gently pull it back into place and screw it tightly. Now, let's plug the screen. Be very careful on how you plug it in. Don't make too much force. It should be just a light click. Like so. Put the protective tape back into place. And there you go. Now, for the next step, we will use the buck converter. In my case, it's just a simple buck converter from an Arduino, which I just soldered to a board to have some leads. And to make it easy, and with double-sided tape, I can put it on the inside of the printer. For that, I'll run the cables through the hole. There is a hole already, so I'll run them through that hole. Like so, and connect them to the first lead you have with 2 thick wires. If you follow them, they will come from the 12 volt jack on the back. So red with red, black with black. and plug it into place. Next, you'll have the LED driver, power driver, and last but not least, the LED power, like so, leaving out your jumper leads. Now let's take a look on the back of the printer. Now I have my LED, my buck converter, and the leads to connect to my Raspberry Pi. So I have 5 volts, ground plus 5, and I have the ground TX and RX. The way to fixate this is use double-sided tape, normal. Take a small piece, glue it on the back, and in my case, because I already have something already soldered, I'm going to use 2 layers just to make sure that there is no contact between the pins and the printer. And just glue it into place. Like so. Now, connect the USB cable back into the printer and you'll have your leads. I decided to leave the front connection of my USB port available and run the USB cable on the outside of the printer, just because I have a chance, if anything goes wrong, I just unplug it and use my regular pen drive to keep printing up until I'm able to fix whatever issue I find. Now take your backplate. In my case, you can cut a hole to put the cables out. In my case, I'm just going to run them through the existing holes, like so. And there we go. And now I can slide my case back into place, like so. Now to plug my screen again, lay it down, make sure that the 2 sides are open with a gap in the middle. Be very gentle with these connections because they break easily. Using the pin side facing down, just plug it back in all the way to the back, and very gently use both your fingers to lock it into place. Once it's locked, use the provided tape, just isolate the connection. Now it's just a question of fitting everything back again and closing the printer like so. Now, using my Raspberry Pi, I'll make the proper connections. So you can find online the pinout for the Raspberry Pi Zero, but I'll tell you the first two are 5 volts, then it's TX, RX, so 5 volts, ground, TX, RX, and the ground is the 7th one. So I'll connect +5 and ground. Now the green cable, which is TX, RX, jump 1, and I have another ground. And there you go. Now I have my Pi connected to my printer. Next, I'll need a modified USB cable. The Raspberry Pi has 2 USB ports. The first one on the right is for power, the second one is for data. If we plug a regular USB cable to the Pi without doing any changes, what's going to happen is the printer will also try to power the Pi through USB or the other way around. So there will be a power return, which we need to avoid if we don't want any issues or errors. There is a link in the description which shows this process, but basically you just need to tape the last pin. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just a question of taping the last pin, the one on the right, with a bit of tape all the way to the back, and isolate the +5 volts. Now just plug your USB cable to the Pi, run it to your printer, and that's it. We can try and power our Raspberry Pi and our printer just to make sure that the Pi boots up and starts and all our connections are done properly. So just power the printer, and if everything goes right, the LEDs for the Pi will start blinking.